Is all we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Let's go. Okay, everybody, per tradition, every 50th episode I do a John Carpenter movie. And being that we are at the big 250, we are going to look back to 1980, to a movie that I truly love. I think is one of my island favorites and one of the best little horror stories ever put on celluloid. We are talking about The Fog. But before we go any further, before we dig into this anymore, once and again, and as always, to the trailer.
John Carpenter's The Fog.
This is KB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here.
And let me be the first to wish Antonio Bay a happy birthday. We're 100 years old today.
And keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east.
100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unknown came out of the fog. Now it has returned. Jesus. 100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something unnatural came out of the fog. Now it has returned. 100 years ago, between midnight and 1, something evil came out of the fog. Now it has returned. The Fog.
Antonio Bay has a curse on it. We're all cursed. There's no water getting near, but something awful cold, Dave.
I think I'll go to Vancouver now.
Where's the fog now?
Well, it should be right outside my door now.
Oh, there's something different about this fog. Dan, stay away from the door. Someone listen to me.
Get inside and lock your doors. Close your windows. There's something in the fog. Stay away from the fog. From the creator of Halloween, the ultimate experience in terror and suspense. John Carpenter's The Fog, starring Adrian Barbeau.
Okay, everybody, you know how this goes. This is directed by John Carpenter, my all-time favorite. So here is the list as best as I can remember it off the top of my head. We're talking about Dark Star, Assault on Precinct 13. We're talking about Halloween, and The Fog, and Escape from New York, and The Thing. And we're talking about Christine, and Starman. And we're talking about They Live. And we're talking about Prince of Darkness, and Memoirs of an Invisible Man, and In the Mouth of Madness, and Village of the Damned, and Escape from L.A., Pui, and we're talking about Ghosts of Mars, and The Ward, and if I missed anything, it is what it is. You know what it is. It's John Carpenter. I need say no more. Okay, everybody, the cast of this is kicking, so let's just get it out of the way. Playing the one and only Stevie Wayne, we got Adrian Barbeau, and we are talking about things like Escape from New York, Swamp Thing, Creep Show, Cannonball Run, Back to School, and TV, Maude, Carnival, Fantasy Island, Quincy, The Love Boat. The one and only Tom Atkins playing one Nick Castle. We are talking Escape from New York and Halloween 3 and Lethal Weapon, Night of the Crepes. And Drive Angry. And on TV, Lou Grant, Quincy, The Rockford Files, Serpico, Harry O. And of course you got Jamie Lee Curtis coming to the Carpenter world once again. Halloween, True Lies, Trading Places, A Fish Called Wanda, Love Letters, Grandview USA, Perfect, Terror Train, Prom Night, Blue Steel, My Girl, you get it. Let's keep going. We got Charles Cypers, oh yeah, playing Dan, Escape from New York, Halloween, Major League, Big Bad Mama 2, Grizzly 2, Honky Tonk Man, Borderline, The Onion Field, Great Lady Down, and every TV show ever created by God. And we got somebody who doesn't have a huge career, but she was on the Carpenter scene. We're talking about Nancy Loomis / Keys / whatever, but at the time it was Loomis. We're talking Halloween, Halloween 3, Assault on Precinct 13, and a couple small TV little roles are what they are. We got the one and only Father Malone being played by Hal Holbrook. Capricorn 1, Lincoln, Creepshow, Star Chamber, Magnum Force, Fletch, Lives, All the President's Men, Wall Street, Rituals. Let's keep going. Oh, man, Mrs. Williams. At one time could stop a clock. We're talking Janet Leigh, Psycho, Touch of Evil, The Vikings, The Manchurian Candidate, Boardwalk, Bye Bye Birdie, The Perfect Furlough, My Sister Eileen, Night of the Lepus, and there's other faces that pop in this thing. We're talking like John Houseman from Rollerball and The Paper Chase, George Buck Flower from everything, including Escape from New York, and They Live, and the one and only Darwin Jostin, Time Walker, Eraserhead, and of course, he was the one and only Napoleon Wilson from Assault on Precinct 13. So, for a guy like me, this cast is a fever dream. Let's get going to the story. Okay, everybody, I'm going to try to do this in 90 seconds or less, which I'm not going to be able to do. It is what it is. And by the way, this is one of those motion pictures I don't want to ruin too much about because it's an actually great motion picture. You know what I mean? This ain't like Time Walker or something. I don't want to give the whole thing away. But if you don't want any spoilers, and I'm not going to give you the end anyway, don't watch this part. Go right to the summation. Save this for after. It is what it is. But let's keep going. The motion picture starts out. It is 5 of midnight. And you got this old man, this old seaman, and he is telling these bunch of kids a story by a campfire. Ooh. And he's telling them about this ship. Ooh. The Elizabeth Dane, who one night was coming in during a fog bank. Ooh. And it followed a fire. Ooh. And it was the wrong fire. Ooh. And it crashed apart on the rocks, and everybody on the boat died. Is what it is. That's the way it goes. We're kicking it off from there. Well, the next thing you know, you got Father Malone. He's at this church, and he's hanging out with his one guy, Bennett, who does basically groundwork for him. And Bennett's like, hey, man, can I get paid? And he's like, hey, man, don't worry about it. Anyway, shall I continue? Next thing you know, a big brick falls out of the wall, out of the building, and behind that is a diary. Father Malone's like, what the hell is this? So he starts reading one such diary, and he finds things he doesn't really like. About this moment, the clock strikes 12, and all kinds of shit starts going wrong all over Antonio Bay. Weird things. Phones ring on their own, headlights go off, gas pumps malfunction, weird shit starts happening in a little corner neighbor store. All stuff goes loose. In the midst of all that, you got this guy, Nick Castle. Well, he's kind of driving down the road, and he picks up this little hitchhiker, Jamie Lee Curtis, who says she never hitchhiked before, but we know she's full of shit. Anyway, they're driving along, and all of a sudden, every window in his truck just detonates. It explodes. It goes in. They're like, what the hell just happened? This is weird. This is strange. Let's go have sex. It is what it is. Next thing you know, you get the ever so hot Stevie Wayne working at her KAB radio station. And she gets a phone call from the weatherman who is just determined to get in this chick's pants. It is what it is. And he tells her, hey, you know, just so you know, if you want something for your radio show, there's a fog bank coming in there, and there's a little big couple guys out there in this little trawler. You might want to warn them. She goes, yeah, great, whatever. So she goes and she tells them, ooh, next thing you know, I don't know what happens here, but this fog bank does roll in. And there's a ship in it. Holy shit. It's a big ghost ship. And the guys go up there and investigate, and they see these, like, weird pirate sailor-looking guys on there. Well, they're silhouettes. And next thing you know, those guys kill all the guys on the seagrass. It is what it is. Well, right after that, Dan calls back up to the one and only Stevie Wayne and tells her, hey, man, you probably gave the wrong information, and that thing probably never got into the fog. And she's like, well, how's that? And he's like, well, the fog doesn't move that way. It's the only thing. And she goes, well, it's against the wind. What kind of fog moves against the wind? Next thing you know, you cut back to when Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins were laying in bed after having a little bit of extracurricular activity. He says, by the way, what's your name? She's like, oh, yeah, here it is. And they're looking at pictures that she draws and sells along the way. And you get the idea she might be a prostitute. I don't know. She says, you know, the picture's free, but you know, I don't know. I don't want to know. Anyway, there's a guy knocking at the door. Clack, clack, clack. Tom Atkins gets up to go look at the door. And when he opens it, the clock strikes 1. The man disappeared. Oh, my God. His life was saved. But his clock breaks upon the wall. Shit's getting kind of really weird. Anyway, we cut to a very beautiful morning where the son of one, Stevie Wayne, your nightlight, is out there walking up and down the ocean front. And he finds a gold doubloon or something. And he goes to pick it up, but a piece of driftwood takes its place. It's crazy. He doesn't know what to make of it, so he picks it up. He runs back to his place. It is what it is. He says, Mommy, 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 look what I found. I found some driftwood. Isn't this shit wild? And she's like, oh, God, you're killing me. Whatever, whatever. I want a stomach pounder and a Coke. And she's like, just get out of my way. Anyway, it is what it is. Story continues. Tom and Jamie, well, they decide to go out to the port, and because Tom's looking for his buddies, these guys in the seagrass, they hang out, they get drunk, they're all fishermen, is what it is. But they never check back in. It's kind of strange, kind of odd. He doesn't know what to make of it. He doesn't think it's good. So he gets a guy to give him a favor to go out there and look for the seagrass. And Jamie Lee Curtis, who's basically this just little passing transient chick, she says, I'm going to go with you. And he's like, why? She's like, well, I'm bored. And he's like, all right, come on, fuck it. And they go and they look for the seagrass together. Okay, from this point out, you've really got 3 stories all taking place at the same time. You got the story of the town historian and her little assistant, Nancy Loomis, and the town historian is, Jamie Lee Curtis's mom. Not in the movie, but in real life. You get the idea. Anyway, they're running around the site. They're checking out the ceremony gathering place, if you will. And at the point, Mrs. Williams, the historian, tells Nancy Loomis, hey, my husband never came home last night. This is weird. Turns out her husband was the guy that was the captain of the Seagrass. Take that for what it's worth. And she's a little bit worried. And the girl's like, hey, Mrs. Williams, shouldn't you be more freaked out? She's like, no, I got a lot going on. I'm busy. Let's get to the church. At the same time, you got Jamie Lee Curtis and the one and only Tom Atkins. They're running out there with this guy to go to the Seagrass to find the boat, to make sure that everybody on the boat is okay. Well, we basically know that they are not. And at the same time, you got the one and the only Stevie Wayne doing a beautiful shot, driving around the countryside, getting to work at her place of employment, KAB Radio. Well, she owns it, but that's where she works anyway. So they get to the Seagrass, and Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins find it, and they're like, this place looks weird. It looks like it's bone dry, but it's wet. It looks like it's rusted, but nothing's going on. And he starts telling her a story down below. What's he telling her about? How his dad found this gold doubloon one time, put it in his coat pocket, and he found this doubloon out where the Spivey Point shipwreck was, is what it is. And when he went to go get it, it was gone. Ooh, spooky. Just at that moment, as they're sitting down there wondering where the hell the crew went, a dead body with missing eyes falls right on Jamie Lee Curtis. Is what it is. Next thing you know, Stevie Wayne is at work, and she's hanging out, and she's listening to these promo reels, and she's like, all right, what's going on? KAB, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and that's all that kind of stuff. And that piece of driftwood goes from saying, part of it, Elizabeth Dane, to basically, 6 must die, and it bursts into flames, and all of a sudden you hear this weird voice coming out of the stereo, and all kinds of hell breaks loose, and she puts it out with a fire extinguisher, and she is deeply traumatized. At the same time, Mrs. Williams and the little assistant of hers, they get to the church where Father Malone starts to tell them the truth about what happened. See, in that diary he found in the wall, just so happens to be that his grandfather, the original Father Malone, tells the story about how the people in the town, 6 conspirators, got together to lure in this boat full of, a rich guy and all his people who had leprosy. And they didn't really want these people around, but they made a deal with them, hey, yeah, you can live there. But what the real plan was to get these people to come in on their boat, crash their boat, all die, go out there, take the gold, and then they could build a church, start their township, and everything would be fine. So that's what they do. They lure these people in, they kill them, they steal their gold, they build it, they make a church, they start their township, and everything goes. Basically, he's telling them that the entire town is a travesty built on a murder, and they are honoring thieves and killers that night with this ceremony. You get the idea. Next thing you know, you got Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins, and they're hanging out at the coroner's office with one Napoleon Wilson. And he's saying to them, listen, bro, I just seen Dick Baxter 2 days ago. He was normal. But I'm telling you now, he looks like he's been underwater for a week. I don't get it. And, Nick Castle's like, this is just fucking weird. None of this makes any sense. He was dead underground. He was dead in the bottom of the ship. And coroner's like, no, brother. No, but he's been at the bottom of the ocean. That's where he died. And they're like, no. In the middle of all that, that body gets up. He starts walking at Jamie Lee Curtis. She shits the bed, starts screaming. They go in there, and they find that the man who was dead with no eyes had got up and carved the number 3 in the floor. This should be the point where everybody says, fuck this. Anyway, at that point, a few moments later, they tell Mrs. Williams that, hey, we found one of the guys from the boat, but we didn't find your husband. This guy's got no eyes, and he's dead, and he's walking around as a fucking zombie. But we didn't find your husband, so there's hope. She's like, yeah, I still got to go on with the ceremony. It is what it is. Anyway, this is all taking place in a bar, by the way. And at that point, Stevie Wayne's on the radio, and Tom Atkins calls and says, "Hey, man, I got some questions I want to ask you because you were talking about the fog on the radio and what was going on with the fog on the radio." And she's like, "Yeah, it was glowing, and then I got this piece of driftwood, and it was really fucking weird, and this shit happened, and it changed, and it blew up in my lighthouse, and all kind of crap it's taken loose." They say, "Okay, we got to get out to the lighthouse." They get up, they bolt, and they go out to the lighthouse to go see her. But in the travels at that time, next thing you know, Stevie Wayne is on the phone talking to the weatherman who's trying to tell her more about the fog coming in, and she's like, no, Dan, something ain't right, stay away from the fog. He's like, baby, I ain't worried about shit. No. In the middle of all that, as the fog is coming in and it's on the radio, Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins hear about this, and they go say, "Wait, we got to make a detour," and they run out to the weather station, whereupon which Dan has already been murdered. Yes, he has. So they get there, and they're like, "Okay, this guy ain't here. Everything's left open. This is crazy." They get back in their car, and at that point, Stevie Wayne, she sees through the lighthouse all the fog coming in around her kid, around her home. And she's like, "Holy shit, Mrs. Cobritz, protect the baby. Anybody can get out to this house. Help. Well, Tommy Atkins and Jamie Lee Curtis say, "Fuck this noise." They go running out there, and they rescue her son. Crazy shit is what it is. They're trying to escape. They get stuck in a mud puddle. Happens all the time. Anyway, they finally get away from all the zombies. Now, Stevie Wayne can't leave the lighthouse because she's the only one who can see where this fucking thing is coming in all over town. It's everywhere. It's coming down this street, coming up that street, and everybody winds up running to the one place that seems safe, the church. We're talking Mrs. Williams and her sidekick. We're talking about the kid, Tom Atkins, and Jamie Lee Curtis, and everybody runs there. And in the middle of all that, Father Malone is trying to tell everybody what's going on, and they're like, "What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about?" As zombie sailors are attacking the church, and they're also attacking the lighthouse with one Stevie Wayne. And in the middle of all that, he reads a little bit farther in the diary that he never had the balls to do before, and finds out that all the gold, well, at least some of it, has been turned into a giant fucking gold crucifix that's in the wall. And they're like, "Holy shit, here's this." Now, I could tell you what happens to Stevie Wayne being attacked by the sailors. I could tell you what happens to everybody in the church, but that would really ruin it and ruin the effect of the motion picture. I'm not going to go there. There's still some ways to go. So get out there, watch the motion picture, and tell me what you think. Okay, everybody, does the fog work? Yes, the fog works. The Fog is one of the all-time great little ghost horror movies ever made, bar none. I don't care. They tried to remake it. They failed miserably. Didn't give a shit about that version. This is the version to see. This is the version that matters. And this is the version that is legendary. So, before we get any more into this, let's get the big three out of the way. The directing? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It is beautiful to look at. This motion picture is shot so well. There's parts of it you can actually take and just frame and put on your wall. And you'd be like, that is some of the most beautiful scenery I've ever seen in my life. Just the way, and I'm not just talking about backdrops and you know, everything with the mountains and the ocean. All that. I'm talking about just scenes with the actors, in the backgrounds, in the sets and everything. It looks amazing. Enough said. The writing, pure ghost story bliss. Every line has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. There's no dialogue that doesn't need to be there. Everything tells you about what is going on, sets you up for the next thing that's about to happen, or fills you in on all points. So the writing, out of the park. And the acting, come on. I gave you the names in this. I told you all the people. Again, these are not, except for maybe Jamie Lee Curtis and, I don't know, maybe to a degree, Adrienne Barbeau. But these are not like your household everybody day names. They're just not. To us, yes. Everybody knows who Tom Atkins is if you're on this channel. At least you should. Anyway, to us, yes. But to the mainstream people, you go to a brother's or a mother or a sister or father's house, you say Tom Atkins, you're like, who? But to us, this cast matters because to us, this cast is all legends. And they all do an excellent job. Right down to even Darwin Johnson, just doing that little teeny fucking stupid role as the coroner. Spot on. Perfect tone. Perfect acting. He should have been bigger. Everything. So the cast, the acting, everything. Right down the line. And for a motion picture, that's basically a little ghost story. Psst, come on. All right, let's get back on track again. Why does this motion picture work? Because it delivers on what it does. It's supposed to scare you, and it does. It never, ever, 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 ever tries to compromise itself and becomes something that it isn't. It's a ghost story. It's a vibe movie. It's a tone movie. It's an environment movie. And on all those things, it lands. It never one time tries to go into action or make a fucking comedy joke or anything like that. That never happens. And back then, that really almost never happened in Carpenter movies. You look at something like this or something, they had a tone and a vibe and they stayed true to it. There might be one moment where you could put a little grin in there, but 99% of the time, much like in The Thing, it stays true to what it is. It's not about jokes, it's not about cheap gags. It is literally about a mood, a vibe, and you're a part of that. You live in that world. You're in that sphere. And as long as you're in it, you're feeling it, and you're getting it. And this motion picture has it in spades. Pacing. It never speeds up too quick, but it never drags. It's in that zone of eeriness from the beginning till the end. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels cheap, which makes the motion picture, which is basically a low-budget flick that is half on sets and half on locations, half of it in cars and half of it with poor man's process where you throw a black curtain behind a car, a couple of lights in the dash, and yeah, people do this shit. But it all blends together seamlessly. It all blends together and works because you believe the world that you're in. So sometimes you might forget, oh, that's a scene, or that's a set, or somebody's just shaking the truck and Jamie Lee and Tom Atkins inside are pretending to drive. Because in the very next scene, you see a real car driving. And it all works together. For a little low-budget flick, it all works together. Obviously helped by the fact that you shoot it in Panavision. It's widescreen. It's big. It's a low-budget movie. But it looks like $1 million. So all that together just makes it all work. One of the things, too, that John Carpenter was a master for back in the day was making you feel all alone. There's so many times in this motion picture, as there was in others, where you can be in a town, you can be in a city, you can be anywhere you want, but you would swear that you were the only human being on Earth. You felt that way. You just had that chill go down your spine, and he does it in this motion picture. You know there's other cast members, but he does so many establishing shots where the streets are empty, the roads are deserted, all that kind of shit. You truly feel like, okay, there's nobody in here. There's like, what is it? I'm in a town, but there's nobody here but me and a couple people that I interact with. There's no superfluous bullshit. The only people you see are the people you need to see. The only people that you run into are people you need to run into. So everything feels very isolated and very, 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 I don't know, just completely devoid of anything that doesn't need to be there, causing a feeling of isolation. Also, for a movie like this that has multiple stories going on, I mean, everybody's in a different place, experiencing a different thing at a different moment. Yet you sit there and it never feels cluttered. It never feels confusing. It's laid out perfectly. As you got Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Atkins going off, and you have Stevie Wayne doing her thing, and then you have the historian with her sidekick, and you got Father Malone. There's all kinds of stories, and you're just dipping in and dipping out of them really quickly. Yet it never gets cluttered. It never gets confusing. It never gets sloppy. It stays awesome from point A to point B, and it's laid out so that you can follow it without question, and they all wind up linking in perfectly in time at the end, which is a very hard thing to do in motion pictures. This should be a class on how to make a ghost story. This isn't like The Haunting, the one with Catherine Zeta-Jones, which is just a shit flick that shows you too much and just sucked. This is the way you do it. You see very little of the ghosts or the pirates or the same, whatever, the fucking Blake and his boys. You see very little of them. Everything is basically a cheap scare. A headlight turning on, a chair moving, little teeny things. But they work and they're effective because the mood, the zone you're in, it's the real world. At least you feel it's the real world. And in the real world, a little teeny thing is going to feel real fucking weird. And they do that in this motion picture perfectly. Also, it was brilliant having the Houseman character, Mr. Meacham or whatever his name was, give the kids the ghost story in the beginning. Because you're kind of getting a little bit of the exposition just wrapped into a campfire story to these kids. It's giving you enough of a chunk. You're like, okay, We should pay attention to what this old man is saying. Much like Kyle Reese is explaining the Terminator situation during the car chase. And you're like, okay, we're off and we're running. And you take his part of the story and put in Father Malone's part of the story and throw in a little bit of what Jamie Lee Curtis is, or Adrienne Barbeau is learning during this thing. And it starts to make this cohesive narrative that never stops. The movie never hits that boring point where you're like, oh God, they're going to explain to us what's going on. We're morons. This is what they do today all the time, by the way. We're morons, and they got to explain it for the 38th time, what's going on, how it's going. They got to repeat it because people are on their cell phones. Didn't exist back then. You were just expected to catch on and figure it out. And it does it so clearly, but not obviously, that it is all laid out. It is all apparent and evident what's taking place. And it does it in an intelligent, respectful way instead of treating you like a fucking idiot. Also, it's really cool. I'm almost wrapping this up, folks. Give me a moment. Is that the fact that this all takes place basically in like one day. It's one night, a day, and into another night. This is a real short story, almost like in Halloween where it kind of wraps up. It all takes, or the Assault on Precinct 13, or the Escape from New York. Holy shit, all those movies take place in a day. Anyway, it is what it is. It's one of those motion pictures. It takes place at a very quick pace in a very short amount of time. Again, not rushed when you're watching it, but if you think about it, this is not something that takes over weeks or months or anything like that. It's like we got 24 hours. This is what happens in that 24 hours. Let's roll. And it's done well. And you cannot talk about this motion picture without talking about the music. The music. Carpenter's score is minimalistic and brilliant. It's perfect. I own the soundtrack. I can listen to it over and over again. It is amazing. And all the motion picture movie music that they got in there, which is like, shit you'd have to license, but I think they said they got it, like really either really cheap or whatever. It was all the music that you hear at the KAB radio, Antonio Bay. And you hear all that kind of like just jazz music thrown in. It all works perfectly. This motion picture nails it on all fronts, constantly, all the time, every time. It's a winner. That's all I need to say. So watch The Fog, the 1980 version of The Fog. The only version that fucking matters, I might add. And have yourself a good time and let me know what you think. Anyway, I gotta get the hell out of here. It's Father's Day weekend. I got a lot of stuff to do. I gotta go. Be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger. Be there for a friend. And most of all, never take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.